Welcome to the October 19th, 2017 episode of Reactive Consciousness, the in-depth podcast about what happened this week in our lives. I am your host, Vize the Bold, and this is...
Lotus Prince.
And your friendly neighborhood Dracologist, again.
Whoa, friendly neighborhood, does that imply there's more than one of you?
Ooh, deja vu. There's an error in the Matrix.
Yeah, it happens when they change something.
Beautiful day in the neighborhood. Beautiful day for Dracologist.
Would you be mine? Would you be mine?
I need a dragon.
Yeah. Back in the real world.
And no more imagination land for us.
Ugh. Ride the trolley into Shitville. Anyway.
What? What?
I want to take this episode to talk about our recent endeavors, especially Lotus and my endeavors in console modding, because it's something that we are very much interested in and very much follow, and definitely want to explore always.
I'd rather
different
not.
Ways. You'd rather not talk about the things that you like.
Oh boy, console modding.
Podcast where you talk about things that you like.
Is that
Damn,
the part
caught in
where
my own web of lies.
console modding, guys? Is that the part where you put little extra tassels and is it extra horns on your console?
Yeah, we put racing stripes on them so they're aerodynamically superior.
It's so our Dreamcast can haul ass all over the neighborhood, and, and we can let people hear them as we rev them up.
I put helium-filled balloons on my Xbox so it's possible to actually fucking lift off the ground.
I do want to see an OG Xbox with hydraulics. That would be fucking great.
I'm not sure
that they're heavy enough.
I still love that really old Photoshop, like when we were in college, of that like weightlifter like really struggling with what he's holding, and someone put like an Xbox like in his arms, so he's just like this really gigantic strong guy just going like holding like just an Xbox.
I think the next
I mean, it's even funnier when you replace that with the original controller, like the Duke is what they call it.
I mean, like the
original Xbox.
Like the funny thing is, the meme was always about how the Xbox is gigantic, and so like, I mean, I always knew it was. I'd seen pictures and everything, and I think I'd seen my friends like my friends didn't really like have like focus on the Xbox, so I didn't see much of it. And then the PS3 came out, and the joke was that it was even bigger. But what I didn't really realize was that the original Xbox is legitimately heavy for a video game system. Like even the PS3, which is bigger, like I don't know, man. OG Xbox, I feel like afraid I'm gonna like what if I shift it wrong, I might drop it. Like it's a brick.
Yeah, no, it is, and God knows what they put in there to make it that heavy. Like,
bricks. I can tell you what they put in there because I've seen it.
Supply.
You might be right. Because the power supply was internal rather than external, so I think maybe you might be right.
That's the heaviest part of the computer general, because it contains a lot of heavy, strong metal elements that required for
lots of copper, right? Especially
gold, even if it's necessary.
But more recent consoles have been able to become more efficient. I mean, like a PS4 has an internal power supply, right? And it's not nearly as heavy as an OG Xbox.
What I heard is that if a power supply's weight equals to its good quality and performance, really. So the heavier is the better.
Huh. Well, it depends. I mean, like some of the really old AC adapters. Like the one for the ColecoVision, let's say, is like twice the size of one for a Super Nintendo, and even the Super Nintendo ones that are like heavy bricks, and that ColecoVision one is like heavy brick. They have gotten much more efficient over time, and the ones that they make now for those systems are actually better than their original parts.
Well, actually, yeah, speaking of which, Vice, you and I both have the Trio for our Genesis, Sega CD, and 32X. I don't have a 32X, but we still have a Trio, and it's smaller and more efficient than hooking up 3 bricks at the same time, which gets super hot upon long use.
Most like people that are really into consoles and like analyzing like their power usage and things like that, like the people that are into like the technical aspects, say that the Trio is a much better designed power supply than like the originals.
I mean, I'm not even a tech nerd, but I mean, I could tell you just from like on the most basic level. Like I did a stream on the Genesis for like an hour and 40 minutes or something, and my brick was glowing hot, and I used the Trio. I streamed for 2 hours on a different date, and like the box on the Trio was like slightly warm. Like you could tell that it had been plugged in, but it wasn't like, oh geez, is this thing okay? Oh, by the way, as an added bonus to the Trio, it does have a little box, but the wire continues out of it, and it's a regular plug, so you don't have to take up like 16 freaking slots on a power strip for no reason.
Yeah, that's really the way to go. And that guy is starting to make it's Retro Game Cave, I believe, is starting to make other versions of that, like for, let's say, the TurboGrafx configurations.
Yep, and the CDX. Who would have thought they'd make one for the freaking CDX?
So like he's giving us the retro gaming community a really nice alternative, especially with the TurboGrafx ones, where the power supplies for those the originals are really expensive because a lot of times systems didn't. So in Japan they typically don't sell systems with power supplies because of some weird legal thing where
stipulation.
It's basically like considered a computer if it comes with one, so they don't want to be taxed like a computer.
Oh,
so
yeah.
like they box them separately, right? Or at least that's what I've heard, or something to that effect. And so like all their consoles, you have to buy like a power supply separately. And so the TurboGrafx ones, a lot of them are weird voltages, like 10 volts. And you can't buy one like right off the shelf like that. You can't buy like a generic power supply that's like 10 volts. You could buy one that's 9. You could buy one that's 12, but you can't buy one that's 10. So like the system specifically came with a 10. So
it's
like
obnoxious.
Yeah, so like if people have lost them over the years or something, things like that, or it just didn't come with one to begin with, you're SOL. So like you have to pay $80 for a fucking power supply now.
It's ridiculous.
So this guy is like making new ones, because he has the know-how to do it. So that's pretty cool.
And he's also making them for I think he has one that works for both the NES and the SNES. So that'll compensate for that SNES duo. Brick. Yeah, the Duo.
Yeah. That's pretty cool too, especially if you have the two systems like next to each other.
Yeah.
Getting into this, I wanted to talk about this because like I've been into getting consoles modded for quite some time now. I have always kind of did like the minor kind of modding. Like with my Super Nintendo, I modded it to play Japanese games, which is like one of the simplest mods you can do.
Yeah, snap out the tabs on the inside.
Exactly. You take a pair of pliers and snap them out. So I've always done kind of things like that ever since I got into collecting Japanese games, and nowadays it's much more involved because like a lot of the mods have to do with video and video quality.
Mm-hmm.
And Lotus and I have been getting really into the RGB scene.
It's funny because when you told me about it, what was it?
RGB, like real Great Britain, or what?
No, RGB, like the SCART cables.
Red, green, blue.
Yeah. So, like Vice, when you first told me about how you were going all in on RGB, I was like,
whatever, man.
Yeah, I like my systems, but like, I don't need to go into like a format that America doesn't even support. Like there's no reason for me to do that. And how much better could the video really look anyway? Now, as it turns out, a lot of systems actually natively support RGB cables, even though
particularly the Genesis.
Yeah, the Genesis, the Super Nintendo, like they'll just take RGB cables, even though our TVs don't. But as it turns out, Vice had recommended a subject we've discussed on this podcast before, the upscaler device, the FrameMeister. And again, I was like, do I really need an upscaler though? But at the same time, I'm a Let's Player, and one of the problems I've always had with Let's Playing is sometimes the video and the audio, well, not the video and the audio of the game, but like the game and my commentary audio sometimes get out of sync, and it can really be a nuisance to have to deal with that all the time.
Sure.
But the thing is, I don't know if it's my capture program with the Elgato or if it's the FrameMeister itself, but either way, when I'm using that particular capture program with HDMI in, I've not had this problem. So the FrameMeister, yeah, the upscaling is nice, but I can just do the damn Let's Plays and without having to worry about these weird technical obnoxious things. And if I have a FrameMeister, then I might not mod my systems to support RGB if they don't. Like my Xbox and my PS2, I'll stick with component cables, thank you. But for the Genesis, I gotta admit, the RGB makes a clear, visible...
Beautiful.
Like, you do not have to be, like, a video file to pick up on this. Like, I made a video on my channel a while back that showed the FrameMeister thing. And I did, like, a before and after, like, audio video cable versus RGB, and like you could see a difference easily. So for my systems that just can take RGB, like the Genesis, the Saturn, I have a Model 1 SNES, so the SNES, and the PS1 for when we get to that modded. We'll talk about that later. I bought the cables for them at least. I don't have to find a guy who knows how to mod the systems. Just plug the cables in, we're done. The FrameMeister can take RGB, so we're good.
Yeah, it's just... It's been neat. I mean, luckily, the mods are getting it to be a lot better than they used to be. Like, eventually we won't need something like the FrameMeister. Eventually every system will hopefully have an HDMI mod out there for it, which I think would be best.
Well, I would say it depends on the nature of the mod, though, because if it just does HDMI out, then that really is good. Well, actually,
that's what I mean.
Well, then again, with your TV, you should be able to adjust the aspect ratio as you see fit, so that should be fine anyway. But with the N64 mod, for example, it actually offers you video settings. Like, do you want to see this in 720, in 576, and you could adjust the aspect ratio as you see fit. So if all systems get mods like that, then yeah, we're good. Yeah.
Actually, I was going to mention that most HDMI mods have their own firmwares and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Particularly the NES HDMI mod, the GameCube one, the N64 one.
I didn't even know the NES had one. That's kind of funny.
Yeah. It's actually made by this guy named Kevtris, who is the guy who invented NSF files.
Oh no, you have mentioned this because that's such an obscure thing.
Yeah. Like he invented like the way that we listen to Nintendo music.
Yeah.
Nowadays, which is really interesting. He's like been there ever since the beginning of like the emulator scene.
Yeah.
So he's like a really brilliant guy. He also like designed the it's like an FPGA NES that is not the one that you have, but the other one.
Oh, I know what you mean. Yeah, the one that's vastly more expensive, but can go into full 1080 instead of 720. And has microphone support for like the 3 games on the system that actually have microphone support.
Yeah. I think it's...
You can finally kill all the stupid Pulse voice enemies in Japanese Zelda.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that? Like, just actually finally, after like 30 years, being able to just go boo into your controller and just the whole screen is clear. It's like, yes.
Yeah. So it's just I can't wait until that happens. But as of right now, the scene, the analog NT Mini. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So as of right now, it's so fragmented, and who the hell knows when everything will finally get done. So your best bet is to use something like a FrameMeister or the open source scan converter, which is actually something that I just bought.
Yes.
So I'm waiting for mine to get here. I don't particularly need it because I have a FrameMeister, but it is the #1 competitor to the FrameMeister, and essentially what it is it's an open source project where people have been adding to it, and it's an upscaler device similar to the FrameMeister, but it's open source and it's made specifically for gaming, and it's a constant work in progress. That's kind of what fascinates me about it. Is it can come in different configurations and things like that, and there are tons and tons of people working on it because it's open source. So eventually, you'll continue to see upgrades of this thing, and I'm really fascinated by it because I think it has some things that overcome a lot of the shortcomings of the FrameMeister. The FrameMeister is great, but it has a couple really annoying things about it. One of them is like you need to basically have profiles for every system if you want them to look right. And the profiles luckily have been made by a couple people.
Yeah, there are some super fans who actually, one of the super fans, the guy that we got our profiles from, actually updated at the time of this recording yesterday, like on the Sunday.
Yeah, he's awesome. And he's like really good. His name's the Pixel Purist. He's at Firebrand X.
Yeah.
And he's really great. But like the fact that the FrameMeister needs these profiles to work.
Yeah, the fact that he has to do it at all. Yeah.
Yeah, he puts an insane amount of work into it, and bravo for him.
Yeah, I gotta update my profiles because for a while my Saturn and my PS1 profile were just the same thing because they're close enough, but at this point the guys like made distinct ones.
I like the fact that he makes them for different resolutions now. Like he used to only make them for 1080p, but like the TV that I have in my living room is actually only goes up to 720p right now. So it really helps out. Plus, I think 720p technically is more accurate. Because it is a direct multiple of 280.
240.
240, yeah. 240.
That's a good point.
So, it looks best in 720.
Okay.
Let's just put it that way. So, having said that, we have talked in a previous episode about us getting our PSIOs for our PlayStation 1s.
Right.
And so that's kind of the thing here is like more and more as I've been getting older, I less and less like emulators. I kind of hate them. They're annoying, and a lot of them have been kind of abandoned as of now.
Is that the reason why I gave you Vice? I gave Vice a Vice. Haha, wordplay.
What was it?
Vice 2 is a C64 emulator.
Oh, geez, I didn't even know about that. But yeah, N64 emulation's always been really terrible.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever...
V64, not N64.
Oh, V64 is its own thing?
Oh, no, you meant Commodore 64.
Yes.
Right? Yeah,
oh,
Commodore 64. Oh, okay, yeah. No, the Commodore 64 emulators are actually really good, aren't they?
They work. They do their job very well.
Yeah. They actually get the sound down, which is like the most important thing, I think, for C64. But
Commodore has very distinct sound.
Yeah, I really just want to play games on original hardware. So like having flashcards and EverDrives and things like that has been something I've been getting into. And I have them for pretty much every system that I own. You can firsthand confirm that, Lotus, that I basically have it for everything. But
now, of course, the exception though, like where you're going with this, the exception is going to be the CD based systems because you can't have carts for them because they don't take carts.
Yeah, luckily I have like two of the big things out of the way. I have it for my Saturn. I have it for my
Dreamcast.
I have for Saturn and Dreamcast optical drive replacements.
Yeah, we both got those, and we've talked about those in previous podcasts as well.
Yeah, and so I just love that these things are out now, because this is going to help preserve the systems, because typically those are the parts that wear out the most and the quickest.
Actually, you got it for, I mean, it still takes discs, but you got one for the Xbox as well, right? You have like a hard drive replacement?
For the original Xbox, I got a soft mod done.
Yeah, well, the soft mod, did you get like the hard drive with games downloaded to it, or can you just play like whatever disc you want?
No, I actually did a soft mod so I could play like disc
like
copies.
Foreign games? Okay.
Yeah, and foreign games.
Okay.
So that was one of the very first systems that got like hacked like very, very quickly. So there was like a lot of piracy going on with that system very early on while it was still alive. I must also pipe in that I don't do this kind of stuff for systems that are currently living, that are currently supported. I find that modding systems that are currently and doing this kind of thing for systems that are currently living is tedious and also really frustrating, especially like if you want to get on the online stores and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And also I also like to support video game developers.
Well, those are the main things. Like the main things is, yeah, you're not supporting the developers if you start like putting ROMs on your current gen systems, but also even if you do get a mod off, yeah, it could make it difficult to get to your online stuff. But even then, if a really famous, like if a really popular mod that people have been anticipating come out, then I promise you the next firmware update for the system is going to kill the mod.
Yeah, and I'm just not interested in the hassle of trying to get around.
Yeah, or being too afraid, to system update. And if you refuse to system update, then you cannot do online stuff. And like with certain systems, like with the Wii and the Wii U, certain games came with obligatory firmware updates on them. Ironically, I was actually able to use one to an advantage for the Wii U, but even so, unless you like, I think there's a way of there might be some ways of spoofing your systems to make them think that it's the latest firmware. I was actually able to pull that off with the PSTV when I wanted to transfer a file onto it, a file that I actually had legally purchased. But other than that, yeah, like you're just fighting with the industry if you mod your system early. Like wait till the system's dead, then you can do whatever the hell you want with it. Like the PSTV, they firmware updated the day after, like a big update, like a big mod came out for it. Like and you know that was the only reason they updated the firmware at all, was just to kill that.
I really have no interest in doing it. Even now, I even though the PS TV and the Vita are kind of dead, there's still stuff coming out for it.
Yeah,
so
they're not dead enough. The Wii U
dead enough.
The Wii U got a firmware update like a year and a half after the previous one. So like, I'll wait till it's like
dead and gone,
absolutely dead. Like I honestly I would have waited longer to do Project Zero. If I hadn't gotten like a Patreon request for it. The funny thing is I still could have just purchased it online and downloaded it, but I already bought the damn game and I want to play my disc that I own.
Yeah, so having said that, I just wanted to quickly mention the kinds of the other stuff I'm getting into. I mean, I can't wait for my PSIO to come back. I've been anticipating that for over a year now because, you know, mine basically got lost.
That sucks.
My original one. So I'm looking forward to playing fan translations on my original system.
Yeah, my priority number one, like I've already done a Let's Play of Demon's Souls, and I've said on this podcast I've done a full Let's Play that I've recorded a full Let's Play for Dark Souls. My priority number one when I get PSIO back is going to be trying to go through the Kingsfield games, starting with the first one, which we never got in our country.
You know what my first priority is?
Yeah.
Is playing that Target game in Police Knots to get that reaction from Meryl.
Oh yeah, good luck by the way. That game's hard as shit. That game is really hard.
PlayStation mouse.
I mean, have fun, but that game, I mean, we didn't try for very long. We each gave it like a half-hearted shot, but even with save states on an emulator, that was tough.
But like the controls were fiddly for that game on an emulator, which is how we played it.
That's true.
And so like I would think that playing it on an original hardware with the actual mouse would be best.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to do that and to test out the OSSC. And also to play some of the really hard to find shmups for the original PlayStation that I've been wanting to play. Like Harmful Park is one of them. I've always wanted to play that, and some Japanese games that I've never played. And also I kind of wanted to get into the Ace Combat games because they've always kind of fascinated me.
Okay.
Because I hear their story's good, and there's a fan translation out for the for the third game, which got butchered in the United States. So I think it's time to play some fan translations and some rare imports like LSD and
Dream Simulator.
Yeah, the Dream Emulator. Yeah,
that's interesting. It's a piece of work.
I would love to do a stream with that because people I think would really get into that.
The game is out there.
Yeah, and so I also purchased. In saying that, I pre-purchased an N64 HDMI board, which you currently have. You already have one.
Yeah. I haven't done video or anything like that, but I tried it out for like a second. But yeah, I was able to get my N64 modded, and it's pretty nice to just have like the thing we didn't mention before with the FrameMeister. You said that you need to have a profile for every system. But the FrameMeister has a limit of how many profiles it can store. Like, what was it, like 20 or something? Which sounds like a freaking ton, honestly.
It's
but
not.
like the thing is, if you have a bunch of systems, yeah, it's really not. Especially because with the Genesis, there are 2 different kinds of profiles you'd want to have because certain games display differently, like et cetera, et cetera. It actually adds up faster than you'd think. So like, I can delete that profile from my FrameMeister because I have the HDMI mod, which on the N64, which also scales however you'd like.
Yeah, so I'm excited to get all these things. I mean, the N64 is the only system of mine that is, you can mod to get RGB that hasn't been modded RGB. I modded my AV Famicom. I got a mod done for my Super Graphics to display in RGB. Like any system that was RGB capable in any way, shape, or form, I've gotten the mod for or gotten the cables for, except for my N64. So I've been playing it through my FrameMeister in S-Video, which looks good, but it's
better than AV.
Yeah, it's better than AV, but it's not nearly what it should be. And then I saw like My Life in Gaming's video on the HDMI mod, and God, does it make an N64 look way better? Even it looks way better than the RGB does.
And I've mentioned this before, even on the podcast. Like I said today that you can display in 480, 576, 720, 1080, but in addition to that, it has arguably better video settings than the FrameMeister offers. Like you could do scanlines on and off, you can adjust the gamma, you can do like certain dynamic
the natural blurring of the system.
Yes, you could turn off the blur. I think there's also some lighting effects, like how your TV has various settings, like maybe I want higher contrast, or like it has movie setting, it has game set, like the N64 kind of has some stuff like that as well, so it's a really good thing to have. And one thing that I thought was kind of funny is that you can still hook up AV cables if you want. It didn't like replace that part of it. So like if you ever wanted to do a side-by-side of your own system, then like here's AV, here's HDMI, then you can do that.
I'm just really excited because I think it's a well-known fact that I hate the N64, and it's not because I don't like the games. Of course I love the games. I mean, I love Ocarina of Time. How can I say that's not one of my favorite games of all time? It is. I love Majora's Mask.
Dude, Mischief Makers, man.
I love Mischief Makers. So I'm basically buying this for Mischief Makers.
Yeah, Mischief Makers actually might be, if not my favorite, it's a genuine contender for my favorite game on the system.
Mischief Makers is one of the very few best games on the system that never got ported on the Virtual Console. Like every other really great game, I can't honestly think of too many great games for that system that didn't get ported.
I was actually going to say, speaking of getting ported on the Virtual Console...
Except for GoldenEye.
Well, of course, because movie rights. But no, I was going to say, even speaking of being ported on Virtual Console, even though I could easily get it on Virtual Console, I just kind of would like to play Ogre Battle 64, like on the 64.
Well, I'm actually in the opinion that the best way to play N64 games is on the Virtual Console.
Just in general?
Yeah, the emulation of them is superb.
Okay.
It's not accurate emulation because the N64...
Because it's better.
Because it's way better
That's pretty funny.
Than the original,
but why?
The original display.
Will you buy the blast processing mod?
Well, it depends on whether I'm going to try to play Sonic the Hedgehog on
the N64.
Yeah. But I don't know which hand I'm going to need to use on the controller. It's too crazy.
That controller was made for aliens, man.
It's made by stupid people. But I mean, like, there's a couple curiosities on the system that did get ported, like
Hybrid Heaven.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the one we both go to.
The same place there. But like by and large, like all the really good Nintendo games got ported on Virtual Console, and then a lot of the third party games did too.
Wait, did Blast Core get ported?
Yes. Well, Blast Core got ported to the Xbox One.
Wow. Oh, because Rare
Replay.
That's right.
Yeah, actually, Rare.
That game's nuts. That game's got such good music.
Rare republished every N64 game they had made except for Donkey Kong 64, which
that wasn't
got
Rare.
a Virtual Console release in probably a deal that they had made.
Well, yeah, but that wasn't that like no, Nintendo owns the rights to Donkey Kong the character, I think. So like it might have been Rare's game, but there's still that conflict.
Well, Rare and Nintendo have some kind of deal going where the Donkey Kong games made by them can be published by Nintendo now.
Yeah.
So the all those games they've been republishing, thankfully.
Yeah, those games are some of the best.
Nintendo and Microsoft kind of actually have a good relationship. It's kind of odd, even though they're competitors.
But that's the thing, though. Like, are they like
really.
Like Sony and Microsoft are competitors, but Nintendo like just fucks off and does its own thing. Like, there's not really competition except for when they release a Call of Duty at the same time or whatever.
I mean, but
Nintendo knows you're not going to play the fucking Wii U Call of Duty Black Ops 2.
One of the best-selling games on the Switch is Minecraft, which is a Microsoft game.
That is pretty odd.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's just one of those things. It's like Microsoft works with Nintendo on a lot of things.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool to see that because you're not used to console.
Like it's funny because I'm just reminded
working together.
Like it's funny because I'm just reminded of that one E3 where there was just bad PR going from like Sony and Microsoft, and I remember that GIF that went all over Facebook of like two cars that had crashed and they had Sony and Microsoft labeled over each of them respectively, and some guy on a bike is riding by going like, oh, look at that, and like that was like Nintendo.
Yeah,
so it's like a lower quality vehicle, but he was unscathed. It was really funny.
I did want to ask, like, a Switch was being brought up with Minecraft, and I was thinking about myself, like, did you hear that Doom 4 is getting ported for the Switch?
Yeah, Doom 2016,
and apparently it's beautiful. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm not believing that. I'm not believing that it is going to be beautiful. Like, I know handhelds are powerful, but like, the nightmare graphics is not going to be possible on that thing unless you are risking the thing exploding in your hand.
So what people have been saying is that it's probably not at full speed, but the way that they programmed it makes it look great.
Okay.
So it doesn't really matter.
The thing, like, I actually, like, this is something that, like, we argued about with my friend, and I said to them like it's not going, like I'm not caring about the graphics really. I'm just making just that the amount of the GPU of the thing is going to be going to cook eggs.
Oh yeah. Well, that's
But
already true.
That's
of
not
the,
that's
the
not
Switch.
that's not the point. The point is that Doom is a keyboard and mouse game.
Yeah.
You're not going to have much fun with that part, with that little diddle dollar that you call a Switch controller.
I mean, I played Doom 2016 with an Xbox 360 controller. So like, I played it with one of the really nice Xbox 360 controllers. You know, the Chrome ones that had like the switchable D-pad, and I had a good experience with it. Like, I mean, I played it on a big TV. So, like, I can understand, you know, people liking their keyboards and mice, but I played that game just fine.
All right.
With controller.
But I'm like my worries. We're going to expect more of like the Polygon review from people who are going to play it on the Switch.
Yeah. I mean, here's the way I see it. I'm happy to see it on the Switch because I love that game and I want more people to be able to play it. And I think it's going to be a technical marvel, but I'm not really interested in it because I already played it. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, like yeah. I have the PC version, the best version.
Yeah, exactly.
Same.
And I have a fantastic graphics card, probably one of the best graphics cards in my computer. I have a 1080 Ti. So like, I'm not going to get better than that in terms of fidelity. So
I am Herr Master Race. So
yeah,
I'm going. No, but I'm not. Like I did, despite the fact that I don't have too much positive outlook on consoles, I'm generally saying like, as long as you're willing to share your games with us, I'm okay. I'm getting a little bit pissy about the exclusive sometimes, but well, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to talk about this because there's a lot going on in terms of modding right now, and a lot of it has to do with getting games more accessible. And also, you know, having them look better on older systems. It's kind of like souping up an old classic car. I find it a lot of fun because, like, you know, Lotus, that I've been into like upgrading my PC within the last few years, and I helped you and Mr. Ryu build your.
That's an understatement. You just like did it.
I designed it and put it together for you.
I helped by moral support.
Yeah, but like. You know, you had input and you helped out. You helped out in passing me things and things like that.
There it is. That's awfully. That's about as far as I could go. Pass the screw. Here it is. All right.
No, it was good though. It's not exactly the easiest thing in the world to build a PC.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, we had a lot of trials and tribulations.
Yeah. I was intimidated enough opening up like the Xbox with instructions.
Yeah. But I just find this a lot of fun, and the more and more that I learn about, you know, how these things work by watching videos and stuff like that, the more and more I'm getting into it. So I just wanted to talk about that for a brief moment. I'm sure I will update people as I get these things actually in my hands. I kind of just ordered them, so like I'm waiting for my OSSC. So one other thing I wanted to tell about, I didn't finish my thought on this. One of the major shortcomings of the FrameMeister is that it loses sync every time resolution changes.
Yeah.
And normally that isn't a problem, but there are certain games in the 32-bit era, especially that change resolution depending on what's going on the screen. And normally with older screens it wasn't a problem because they were analog, but like for instance there are certain games that with frequent resolution changes, such as RPGs, where if you go into a menu, the menu is in a resolution. Like if you play a Final Fantasy game, you press triangle and you're immediately going to lose sync, which is really annoying. You basically can't play like that. You know, it's just too annoying.
Yeah.
So your best bet is to play those games on something like a PS3. I'm getting the OSSC in part to see whether it's better at that kind of thing. On the Saturn, there's a few games that do it too. And one of my favorite games for the system, Darius 2, actually does that. It changes resolution. So I'm hoping that these changes are addressed with the OSSC, and I'm just kind of I'm a tinkerer, so I kind of want to play with the latest gadget anyway. So I'll update people as I receive these things and as I fiddle with them, but I just kind of wanted to talk about them because Lotus and I have been getting into them quite a bit lately.
Yeah, and speaking of which, the only thing that I wanted to add was I mentioned the Xbox a couple times. I still haven't actually played any games on my Xbox. Like, I got the system for when I would, because there are things that I would like to play, for sure. But what I had wanted to do, I had mentioned this in a previous podcast, but the video game store, like the retro store we've gone to, where I got my N64 HDMI modded, and I'm going to get my GameCube HDMI modded. That should hopefully be done relatively soon. I had said that I had asked the guy if he could do the mod to the Xbox that gives it the ability to support 128 megs of RAM instead of 64.
And this is basically for 6 games.
Yeah, for a few. And like, because I had asked somebody online on like a Facebook group if they were willing to do it, because there's this one guy who was just offering to custom make like Xbox systems with like hard drive replacements that have games already pre-downloaded on them and stuff like that. And I was like, can you do the RAM upgrade? And he was like, no, that I cannot do. That's too intense. So like, I had asked the guy at the retro game store if he could do it, and even he said, I think I can, but he pointed out that like it was going to cost me for sure, because number one, it's a big deal, and number two, this guy constantly has like a line of stuff to do anyway. So I was like, all right, fair enough. Maybe I'll hold off, and maybe if I change my mind later, I'll come back when he's more open or whatever. But like several weeks later on the Facebook group, somebody else chimed in, and he was like, well, I can do the mod. Like, if you go and get the chips for it, because I don't feel like doing the legwork, if you get the chips and send them to me, then sure, I can do it for you. I was like, really? So I was asking the guy how that would go down. Now, what I did not realize was that there were two things going on. Number one, you just install the RAM chips, which involves fine soldering, and that's way out of my league. The other thing is, I didn't realize this, but you have to update the Xbox's BIOS to be able to understand that it's now supporting 128 megs of RAM. So that's a separate thing. So you can soft mod it or hard mod it. Vice, there's a chance that you might actually have that soft mod already. Like, you might just be ready. Like, if you just want to put in the RAM chips, you might be good. For me, I need both, because I just have a regular system off the shelf.
The thing is, I got mine done a long time ago, and sometimes there are major advancements in these things.
Oh, so I don't know.
I don't know how up to date and how many abilities mine has. I know that I can play imported games very easily, and I can also watch region-free DVD. I can watch any region's DVDs on it, which is a really cool thing to do, because watching imported DVDs is a big pain in the ass. Yeah. There's still no good way to do it on PC for some reason.
Put them in a PS4.
Even then, they go by regions on DVDs. So like the Blu-ray regions got shifted around in our favor. So we are the same region for Europe and Japan. Okay. I think. For Blu-ray, so there's no problem there. So like most of the things that we would want to watch are accessible to us.
Yeah.
However, we're still DVD region 1. Okay. Even on a PS4. So we can't watch anything from Europe.
Okay.
We can't watch anything from Japan. That's a DVD.
Yeah.
We can watch the Blu-ray, but we can't watch the DVD.
It's kind of funny. But no, yeah. So where I was going with this, though, was that there are kind of two mods that I want done. So I wanted to see if I could send my Xbox to one modder who would then send it directly to the other, if I could. Because the guy who was offering to make the custom Xboxes, I would like him to replace my hard drive with stuff that could launch games that were installed to it, like the flash card equivalent for an Xbox. And then the guy who was willing to install the RAM chips would, install the RAM chips and update the BIOS. Now, the guy told me that updating the BIOS, there are two ways of doing it, or two kinds, like two categories of ways of doing it. One is just installing a hard chip, or no, not a hard chip, a hard mod, which would be installing like a chip, which would allow me to have both sets of BIOS on the Xbox. I don't know why you'd ever want to go back to the old one, but if you really wanted to, you could. The other is the soft mod that totally overrides the BIOS. So your original BIOS are gone, but at the same time, you almost certainly wouldn't care. And the soft mod involves, Vice, I think what you had, like a USB to memory card thing adapter or whatever, and like you need like Mech Assault or like Splinter Cell to get the game to go. So the guy had said for the RAM chips, I was asking him how much the mod would cost. I didn't know about the BIOS mod, so this is before that. But just for the RAM chips, I asked him how much it would cost to have them soldered on, and the guy said like $30 plus return shipping. Like, that's fucking nothing. So I was like, all right. Now with the hard mod as well, that would be $100. So that is something else, but soft mod, I don't have a price on yet. I don't know if it's going to be the same thing or what, but I'd probably want the soft mod anyway, just because I don't want to worry about multiple BIOS. I just want to turn on my Xbox and there it is. The guy said he should have the materials to do that, except for Splinter Cell, which I actually got for that specific purpose. So I can just mail that stuff over to him. And so basically, if I can get both mods done to the Xbox, then I should be able to play like fan-translated games because of their like ROM or ISO files, and arcade games that never got ported but can run on the Xbox theoretically, like Virtua Cop 3.
So yeah, I was actually going to point out that the vast majority of these, so the games that you're referring to, I should quickly preface that they are on the Sega Chihiro board.
Yeah, Chihiro, yeah.
Board, which was a successor to the Naomi board, which was based on the Dreamcast.
Mm-hmm.
So the Chihiro board is based off the original Xbox. That's why you can mod it. So there's only a slight difference between a Chihiro board and the original Xbox, and it's the RAM.
Yeah, like that's it.
So, just to give you an idea, so that's why a lot of the Sega arcade games back then were actually ported directly to Xboxes, because there wasn't a lot that needed to be done.
Yeah.
So just to give you an idea, the vast majority of these games got ports, with Virtual Cop 3 being the major exception.
Yeah.
So Crazy Taxi 3 High Roller, that got
that's on the Xbox.
An original Xbox port. Ghost Squad got a Wii port.
Yep, Wii. Mm-hmm. I have that.
Ghost Squad version A also on the Wii. Gundam Battle Operating
there's
Simulator.
2 Ghost Squads on the Wii?
So version A is included.
Okay.
In the package is what I'm saying. Version A is just like an update.
Okay.
So Gundam Battle Operating Simulator, I think was only arcade. So that could be a game that you could check out.
Sure.
Then there's Ollie King, which I don't think you would ever really want to try on your Xbox, because part of the fun of Ollie King, I don't know if you ever saw this game.
Is that when you stand on the skateboard and you like move?
Exactly.
Yeah, that was what the fun was. Yeah, but the controller is just not the same.
Yeah, just play Street Skater for PlayStation 1 if you want something similar. Outrun 2, which got a port. Outrun 2 SP, which also got a port.
Mm-hmm.
It was called Outrun 2006.
Oh, that's an Xbox game. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, that is the best Outrun game, I would actually have to say. House of the Dead 3 got a port.
Yeah, that's on PC and Xbox and PlayStation Network.
And Wii.
That's right. Yeah, House of the Dead 2 and 3. Yeah.
Virtual Cop 3, which is
that's the big one.
Basically the one game.
That's the one I really care about, yeah.
And then there are 2 Wangan Midnight racing games, which probably I think got ports as well. But they're Japan only, but they're realistic driving simulators, which we're not really into. So
yeah. So like if I wanted anything
Virtual Cop
on
3.
yeah, basically what I'm looking for is like fan translated Middle Wolf Chaos, Virtua Cop 3, I guess that Gundam game just to see what the hell it is, and if a fan translation exists, just for the novelty, that one Persona game on the Xbox. Like, what the fuck?
There is no fan
or
translation.
not Persona, but SMT, sorry.
Yeah, there's no... I knew what you meant.
Yeah.
There is not one for that.
Okay.
But I can tell you that there is one other interesting game that you may want to check out.
Yeah.
So there is an official leaked English version of a Dreamcast game that was Japan only.
Okay.
Called Rent-A-Hero #1.
Oh, I am interested.
It's so
I know about that.
That is a sequel to Rent-A-Hero for the Genesis, which got a fan translation. That was Japan only.
Yeah, Rent-A-Hero is like, he was in like Fighters Mega Mix as an unlockable character, and like nobody knew who he was. Like the funny thing is, it kind of stands on its own because he looks like a Rent-A-Hero. He looks like just some dude wearing a hero costume. It's like, that's kind of funny. I don't know what it means. Turns out he had his own game.
So Sega had apparently completed an English version of it for the original Xbox, but had never released it. And it leaked.
Well, that's cool.
So you could play that.
All right, I am interested in that.
I think those are the major ones. I mean, there's a couple really good imports. There's Taito Legends 2 from Europe, which you should want to play because it has some really good...
Why from Europe? Did America not get that? Because, I mean, America got the
Correct.
PS2 version.
Yes, they did not get the Xbox version.
Okay, well, from what I'm aware of, it's the same library with, like, 3 exceptions or something.
Yeah, but those games are really good. Darius Gaiden is one of them.
Didn't we get that one? We got some Darius game.
We got G Darius.
Oh,
which is
okay.
The other game that came out from that series around the same time.
Okay.
G Darius got a port to PlayStation 1, whereas Darius Gaiden got a port to Saturn.
Okay.
So, and they're both really good ports, but this is of course the arcade version. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's a little different.
So the Taito Legends for 2 for Xbox, the European version, is definitely worth it. Though you don't need to mod your system to play it because they forgot to put region lock.
Oh, that's funny. So like it's one of the few games you could just import and play.
Yeah, some people are theorizing that they did that on purpose because the company that published it was going out of business and didn't get chance to put out the American version. So they're basically saying they probably just did that as a gimme.
I love behind the scenes shenanigans like that. Like I think by far my favorite like cheat the system story is for D, the video game, because for those who don't know, D is like a 2-hour, like literally exactly 2-hour long at most, or else you die, sort of horror game for the PS1, Saturn, and like really old like Windows
3DO.
Oh duh, yeah, it first came out on the 3DO. Yes, excuse me. And the thing with that game though is it had a bunch of content in it that was considered like too graphic, and the higher ups wanted the creator to tone it down or censor some stuff or do whatever. So he was like, okay. So he was quote working on that, but all of a sudden it came down to the point where like the deadline was within like a few days. So he was like, well, shit, I better take the game over myself. So instead of sending the game through the proper channels to receive checks and balances, he personally took a copy of the game and flew over with it and just handed it to the guys. He's like, here you go. And they mass-produced it, and it was just the original uncensored version of the game. Because fuck all of you. It's like the funniest story to me.
Yeah. I love hearing that.
Yeah, it's so good.
Kind of remind me of events like when you find out that, well, not entirely like this, but sometimes when you've heard like indie developers are saying like, oh, you can't buy a game? Here's the torrent.
Oh, yeah, no, that is cool of them to do. Yeah, like, I am totally okay with you getting the game if you cannot legally purchase it, because You're gonna play it
like
one way or
Manhunt
another, and if
2.
you can't pay me, then I don't expect you to pay me.
Like Manhunt 2's uncensored versions got leaked to
the Wii?
to torrents. Yeah, well, the uncensored PS2 version got leaked to the to torrents.
Jesus.
So
I gotta look into that. Yeah.
Here's one thing about the Wangan Midnight games that may interest you, even though you're not into racing. The soundtracks were composed by Yuzo Koshiro.
Hey.
So
that
you may just want to pop
anything.
them in just to listen to the music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope that the title screen still says like music by Yuzo Koshiro. I hope he just never drops it because
I'm
like
sure it does.
Because I know he did that for Ninja Gaiden or Revenge of Shinobi.
Yeah.
But what I didn't realize is that he just keeps doing that. Like Streets of Rage 1 and 2 both have that. Yep. It's great.
Yeah, I actually asked him about that at a.
Oh, I know. I love that story. Yeah.
Because I that's the only guy that I know of in that era where you see like literally the trademark right there on the title.
Like you don't even know who made the game. It's just like Streets of Rage, music by Yuzo Koshiro. Like what?
Yeah, exactly. So, having said all that, I did want to wrap things up here.
Mm-hmm.
We could talk about this kind of stuff all night because we're big nerds about it. But I want to let everybody know that they can remember to subscribe to the Corrective Consciousness YouTube and SoundCloud pages. While there, please give us thumbs up, likes, and 5-star ratings on iTunes. It helps us promote and spread awareness of the show, and any bit of encouragement helps keep me, well rested at night. You can also catch us on Tuesday on our sister podcast, Corrective Consciousness, the podcast about our lives, and also has a really nice intro theme from Dracologist. Finally, you can friend me as Vise the Bold on Steam, PSN, Xbox Live, and Twitter.
And you can follow me on my YouTube page, Lotus Prince. You can hit me up on Twitter at Lotus Prince. And if you are interested in seeing some of my videos early, getting in on exclusive live streams, or even selecting upcoming games for me to Let's Play, then consider swinging by my Patreon, which can be found at patreon.com/LotusPrince.
And Dracologist?
You can find me on Discord.
All right.
there it is. Hit him up.
I'm gonna redirect you to the lair of the Crocosphere anyway. We need the members.
Sounds good. All right. Well, we'll catch you on Tuesday next week.
Until next time, everyone.
Emperor protects.